Hello, Facebook, Instagram. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Ash Shelley, and I am ready for our live this week. It is 11:58. We have about 2 minutes, maybe a little bit less, before we get started with our Ash Shelley segment today. I missed you guys. Last week I pre-recorded because I had a training. Self-development and self-mastery is key. So I was at a training self-mastering myself, and that sounded weird. Oh, what did I just do over here? Hello, Facebook. What did I do over here? Okay. All right. Hello, Instagram. Hello. Facebook. Happy Tuesday. Welcome. So I'm super excited. It's 11:59. We'll get started in 1 minute. I'm super excited about being back live. Last week I pre-recorded because I was engaging in self-development and self-mastery. So I was at a training and could not be with you live. So what I did was I pre-recorded the segments, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Instagram, I tried to upload the pre-recorded segment and it was unsuccessful. So I'm gonna have to do an extra live just for you guys. Because you didn't get to see it last week, but the rest of you did. Hi Facebook, hi Instagram. It is 12 o'clock and this is your Ask Shelley segment. My name is Shelley Fan, and I am your emotional intelligence expert. I am the owner and CEO of Ash Shelley Consulting, where we, through the provision of psychoeducation, just enhance the emotional intelligence of corporations, large and small businesses, ministries, families, and individuals to get them to their next level. Also with Ash Shelley, you can book me as your next keynote speaker, workshop, conference teacher. I love to get a microphone in my hand and just pour out what's needed to elevate the emotional intelligence of God's people. And so today I have an opportunity to share a very difficult question with you all. And this is what I do every Tuesday. So for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, every Tuesday at 12 o'clock, I go live on Instagram and Facebook sharing a question that's asked of me, and I have an opportunity to share a perspective. It may not be the answer, but it is a perspective. I do this in hopes that the things that I share are items that you can add, tools that you can add to your wellness toolbox, something that you can share with friends and family, and you can definitely chime in and share your expertise as well, so we all grow together. And so this week's question is as follows. Hello, Facebook. How is everybody? Let me know who you are and where you are from. Hello, Instagram. If you see me going back and forth, it's because I have two cameras going to just extend my reach to you all. So please let me know who you are and where you are from. Please comment. I don't want to facilitate this all by myself, so I would love your input, especially with this week's question. Are you ready? Are you ready, Instagram? Are you ready, Facebook? And here we go with this week's Ash Shelley question. Dear Ash Shelley, it has taken me weeks to write in, but I finally got the courage to do so. About a year and a half ago, well, closer to 2 years ago, my sister's husband confided in me about his desire to end their marriage. The two were really in a bad place and things were rocky. Initially, we started talking about other things like investment opportunities and etc. And during one of our sit downs about how to invest, he started talking about his marital issues with my sister. Now, my sister and I have the same mother, different fathers, and did not really connect until she moved here to Florida about 5 years ago. We have always known each other, but we have never been close. Anyways, our relationship grew closer and closer, and his intent to leave my sister grew stronger and stronger. One day, out of what I thought was a joke, he mentioned how happy he would be with her if only he had a sexual outlet. See, after children, my sister has had issues with intimacy. She has shared those issues with me, and she doesn't even try. It has been years since they have had sex. It makes no sense to me. The joke became a reality because in one of our investment meetings, one thing led to another, and we became intimate. For a long time, I felt bad about it, although it kept happening. It is now going on 2 years, and I want this to end. I have to mention that in the past almost 2 years, I have seen their marriage improve drastically because they no longer argue about sex. I too am married, and I am happy with my husband. You guys got to comment, please. Please comment. I need your help. Okay, where was I? I too am married, and I am happy with my husband. He is a disabled veteran, so our marriage has not included too much sexual intimacy as a result of his limitations. A few weeks ago during a family gathering, my husband made a naughty joke about us, and my brother-in-law almost lost it. He was so angry to learn that my husband and I still have sex. It was at that time that I knew I had to end it. I have children. He has children. We have amazing families. I just don't know what to do. Do I need to read that again? Do I need to read that again? Are we all on the same page here? Okay. So this is a sister who writes in, and she's basically sharing that about 2 years ago, she became intimate with her sister's husband. Okay, so someone says yes to read it again, so I'm going to read it again. Dear Ash Shelley, it has taken me weeks to write in, but I finally got the courage to do so. About 1.5 years ago, well, closer to 2 years ago, my sister's husband confided in me about his desire to end their marriage. The two were really in a bad place and things were rocky. Initially, we started talking about other things like investment opportunities, etc. And during one of our sit downs about how to invest, he started talking about his marital issues with my sister. Now, my sister and I have the same mother, different fathers, and did not really connect until she moved here to Florida about 5 years ago. We have always known each other, but we have never been close. Anyways, our relationship grew closer and closer, and his intent to leave my sister grew stronger and stronger. One day, out of what I thought was a joke, he mentioned how happy he would be with her if only he had a sexual outlet. See, after children, my sister has had issues with intimacy. She has shared those issues with me, and she doesn't even try. It has been years since they have had sex. It makes no sense to me. The joke became a reality because in one of our investment meetings, one thing led to another, and we became intimate. For a long time, I felt bad about it, although it kept happening. It is now going on 2 years, and I want this to end. I have to mention that in the past 2 years, I have seen their marriage improve drastically, she puts in all caps, because they no longer argue about sex. I too am married, and I am happy with my husband. He is a disabled veteran, so our marriage has not included too much sexual intimacy as a result of his limitations. A few weeks ago during a family gathering, my husband made a naughty joke about us, and my brother-in-law almost lost it. He was so angry to learn that my husband and I still have sex. It was at that time that I knew I had to end it. I have children. He has children. We have amazing families, and I just don't know what to do. All right. So, first and foremost, ending the relationship, I don't think is the greatest challenge, right? It may be challenging to end the relationship, and the reason why I say that is because I am not sensing a lot of emotional attachment in this, And in the event that there is emotional attachment in this, it's not something that she really highlights in her write-up. Usually the forefront of things come out during these questions, right? But it's not. She's not really saying we love each other, we're in love with each other, we want to be with one another. That would be a completely different question, but she's really not saying that, right? She's not sharing that there's emotions involved. And again, remember with these questions, it lacks a lot of detail, and this is why therapy is so important, because I have an opportunity to get more information. But with what I'm reading, it doesn't seem like there's too much of an emotional attachment, with the exception of the fact that her brother-in-law gets a little upset when he hears that she's still intimate with her husband. We have to understand that a man being territorial over you doesn't necessarily mean that he gives a rat's behind about you. I'm not saying it in this. This is just for somebody to hear. I think oftentimes we take a man's territorialism over us as emotion. Territorialism, if that is a word, can be birthed out of emotions, but it's often birthed out of something called selfish. So stop thinking that a man being overprotective and territorial over you, don't mistake that for emotions. Now back to the question. And so here we are. I don't hear much about emotions, so I feel like it's not necessarily ending that's going to be the greatest challenge, but everything that happens afterward. Because everything that happens afterward is going to be extremely indicative of what the outcome is going to be. I don't know if this woman wants to take it to the grave with her. Are you trying to... Hi, Spencer. So I don't know if this person wants to take it to the grave, like we are not sharing this, we are going to take it to the grave and keep it moving. I don't know if she's at the point where she just wants to be honest with the players involved. But the thing that's difficult about this is that there are a lot of individuals that are going to be hurt. The emotional injury is not only hers and her brother-in-law's to bear, but her husband, her sister, their children are all victims of this decision that was made. And so again, it's not necessarily about ending, but about everything that happens after we end. We have to stop fretting about problems and the branches of problems, and making sure that we get down to the root of things, right? To the root of things. And so again, I don't know if ending is your biggest challenge. It's everything that's going to happen after you end that relationship. I'm hearing a lot of dissonance in this. About 2 weeks ago, I did a live about cognitive dissonance. And just to kind of quickly give some feedback or some perspective on that, basically that is, we have, as humans, we have ideas, we have bits of information, we have scripts, things that, ways that we view the outside world, and we create stories called schemas to help us understand our outside world. And when those ideas and those schemas, and those morals, or whatever you want to call them, conflict with each other, it causes inner conflict that we call dissonance, cognitive dissonance. So I had used an example a couple weeks ago that, let's say that you are a smoker, but you believe that smoking is bad. So now you have to what we often do is, when we are in a state of dissonance, we tend to resolve it by doing a couple of things. Number one, we may try to change our behavior, right? So because I'm in a state of conflict about what it is I'm doing, then because I'm in a state of dissonance about what it is I'm doing, I then modify my behavior to take the inner conflict away. So I choose to quit smoking. Or you could add more information to it, a lot of unrelated details that basically justifies the conflict. So I'm a smoker, smoking is bad, but I don't eat meat and I exercise and I drink a lot of water. Does that make sense? And so sometimes we just change our ideas, and then to help the conflict from being uncomfortable. So I'm hearing a lot of dissonance in this. I would love to ask her, what are her thoughts about adultery? What are her views on family? Because a lot of the times we declare that we believe certain things, and these are our morals and our values and our understanding of the world, but our decisions and our actions don't flow in line with that. What is it that you truly believe, especially as kingdom believers? There is so much dissonance in the kingdom. This is what I believe. This is what I believe. I believe in the word, but your actions don't necessarily line up with the fact that you believe in the word that you say is the one and only source. So going back to this, she's in a state of dissonance. I'm hearing like, you see that it's bad. You said you felt bad initially, but kept on doing it. That's dissonance. You know this is bad. You know that this is, and when I say bad, according to her, right? Because as therapists, you guys there? Hello? You guys are frozen? Okay. All right. So I don't know what's going on with the connection, but I'm going to keep on going. Does everybody see me? Is everything okay? I don't know what's going on with the connection. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to do something really quick. Okay. All right. I hope you guys are still connected. Can you guys still see and hear me? Yes? Can you still hear me? You still can see me? Okay, someone says yes. Okay, so she has this dissonance. She's saying that this is not, I feel bad about this, but I continue to do it. That's dissonance. And so she's adding some fluff to it. We do this all the time when we start adding fluff to the crappy things that we're doing, the things that are not in line with what we say we believe. And so here's the fluff. My sister and I are really not close. We really didn't know each other, right? Their marriage has drastically improved since I have elected to be his sexual surrogate. These are all things. It's adding fluff to resolve the conflict. What are you doing to add fluff to your inner conflict? We have to stop adding fluff to our inner conflict and face the fact that we are doing things that are not in line with what it is we want. How can you expect somebody else to meet your needs and to meet you where you at when you can't meet you where you're at? Where you can't meet you where your standards are at, where you can't meet you where your morals are at. So here she is, continuing to sleep with this man, feeling bad, and now justifying it by saying that their marriage is completely improved. Things are going great since she started having sex with him. The next thing that I want to point out is something called consequential thinking. So we talked about the dissonance, right? I'm assessing the fact that there is dissonance in that this woman is dealing with, this inner conflict that she's dealing with. And now I want to talk about consequential thinking. This is the ability and the ability and the willingness, because for some people they have the ability, they just choose not to, but the ability and the willingness to forecast the consequences of our actions before we even do it. It seems so simple, but oftentimes we don't do it. This is when you sit down and you think about all the possible outcomes. These are the pros, these are the cons, this is the potential benefit, and this is the potential risk. And a lot of times we just don't do it. First and foremost, that's one of the last part of the brains that develop in men and women. Women develop where this happens, this consequential thinking happens in our frontal lobe. And women, our frontal lobe develops at about 25 years of age, and for men, it's much later. Sorry, men. So I don't see where there was any consequential thinking that was engaged in this. And not only were these decisions and actions void of consequential thinking, because a lot of times we want to do things, we just want to do things, we just want to be in our flesh. But when you think about children, innocent children being involved, people who truly love us unconditionally being involved, we have to be able to exercise something called self-discipline. This is when you're able to say no to what you do want to do. When you are able to say yes to what you do not want to do. Self-discipline is required to live a life of happiness and fulfillment. If you are not self-disciplined, you living a life of fulfillment will always be challenged because you become your greatest obstacle. We have to be able to say no to the things that we know are not good for us. I'm talking about eating. I'm talking about the people that you say yes to, the people that you allowed in your support circle. Self-discipline. See, the reason why I'm doing this, because we can tune into this and think this woman is horrible, she's disgusting, how can she do this to her sister? But when we start to break things down, like the lack of consequential thinking, we are all guilty. The inability to exercise the highest level of self-discipline. Many of us are what? Guilty. So this is why it's important to not be judgmental, but to break this problem apart and understand all the moving parts, okay? So we talked about dissonance. We talked about void of consequential thinking. We talked about the absence of self-discipline. Let's talk about boundaries. Let's talk about boundaries. When we lack boundaries, we leave a wide open door for the enemy to step in and have a house party. And in this situation, I mean, I could go back and read this, but if you go back and catch the replay, we can see where the boundary issue started at the very beginning. And what happens when you do not catch boundary violations at the very beginning, or the attempt for it, it becomes out of control. It's very hard to gain control over a series of boundary violations, because boundary violations then set a standard and a definition for that relationship. That is why it's so important to make sure that we are very key, very cognizant, hyper vigilant about honoring boundaries. What am I talking about? What was the first boundary violation? What was the first boundary violation? I feel like even the time when they sat together and had this meeting about the investment, where was her husband? Where was her sister's husband? I'm sorry, where was her husband and where was her sister at this meeting? How did it end up so that it was just the two of them at this meeting? See, a lot of the times our inner desires, if we don't place a check on them, it will start to lead us to make certain decisions to draw us closer to the desires of our flesh. So we have to be really careful to be cognizant of it and catch that stuff at the very beginning. When you look 2 seconds a little bit longer, right? We have to be able to be cognizant of what our flesh is doing and what it is thinking, because what we do is if we suppress it, it will start to guide our decisions. Like, why wasn't the spouses invited to this meeting? So I think that was a boundary violation. I think that it opened the door for another boundary violation. And here is this husband sharing with his sister-in-law his sexual issues with his wife, who happens to be her sister. Now listen, I come from a family, us Haitian families, when we get together, it's like there's no in-laws anymore, right? We're full-blown blood family when marriage happens. So I understand that it may not be considered to most of you inappropriate that he was sharing with her about the sexual issues he's having with the wife. How many of you think that that was a boundary violation? Or do you think that that was appropriate for him to share that with her sister? So this is the writer and him. They're having this talk about financial services, investing money, and he starts to share about the sexual issues he's having with her sister. I'm not hearing any feedback. I'd like to hear from you. Do you think that was a boundary violation? I think that there was a way that she could have handled it to where the boundaries were honored. Like, listen, I'm going to stop you right there, bro. I'm going to stop you right there. Listen, you guys need to go see your pastor. You need to go get some counseling, okay? I'm going to be praying for you. If you want to talk about this, go get my sister and I will get my husband, and we will sit down and we will talk about this and we will pray about it. We will get people involved in this. I think that entertaining that conversation and even the joke about her becoming a surrogate, I don't know if he specifically said it about her, but kind of like, oh, if I had a sexual outlet, we would be happy. I just feel like those types of things were boundary violations. And what about honoring your sister? Like, let's say he wasn't even directing that comment about having a sexual outlet. That's your sister. And you know what? Listen, this woman, I'm not saying that she's a bad person. But, you know, sometimes we have to stop taking the fluff out of it and just deal with what it is. And what it is that you're sleeping with your sister's husband. You are sleeping with the father of your nieces and nephews. Because I don't know what the children are, boys, girls, or what have you. So we had a series of boundary violations. We have to make sure that we catch boundary violations at the very beginning. When that hug is a little too long, when that phone call came in a little too late, when that text message came a little too late, where that stare happened 3 seconds a little too long, right? And so making sure that we are always honoring boundaries, even when it's not something that you want to do because you kind of invite the flirting and it makes you feel good, understand that the outcome is never good. Boundaries are healthy. Boundaries are healthy. Saying no, don't touch there, don't look at me that way, confronting situations at the very beginning is healthy. So there was a lack of boundaries from the very beginning. Sometimes we sit there and think like, how did it get to this? Like, how did they end up in a situation, right? In a situation where they are now sleeping together. You know what? Boundary violations. Boundary disguises the potential outcome. Boundaries, little small boundary violations end up in huge boundary violations when you're like, oh my God, how did I get here? Okay? So let's talk about healing and exposure. And I've said this before, and I want to make sure I say it again. Because now we have to decide, or she has to decide whether she's going to take this to the grave or confront it. What do you guys think she should do? Should we confront? Or just take it to the grave so nobody gets hurt? What do you guys think? Are we taking this to the grave? Or are we going to expose it? One of the things that I said a couple of weeks ago during a live is that when we're dealing with truth, the exposure of truth only comes for the purpose of healing. It does. It's not for people to get put in jail or to embarrass, although those things are natural consequences that come out of exposing the truth. But truth comes to heal. So when we are not exposing the truth, we are taking away the ability for people to make an informed consent about what it is they want to do with their lives. When you don't tell the truth, you stop another person's process of healing because you're not exposing the truth. I want to share this too. Someone says, tell the truth because it will heal over time. Thank you for that. What do you guys think here on Facebook? Instagram is saying, tell the truth. Cassandra, what's in the darkness will come to light more than likely. Any little thing can expose the truth. So she might as well, it says Seymour. So she might as well be the one to move forward to heal the hurt that she's caused. Very good. I love these responses. And I'm going to tell you why I love it. I love it because as you guys know, I do retreats. I love retreats, corporate retreats. And there's a game that I often do called Would You Rather. I talked about this before. So Would You Rather is basically giving people two situations where they would have to choose one or the other. And this helps people to get used to making very difficult decisions about things that you really don't want, or options. You give them options that they really don't want either or, but they have to stick to that decision. So an example of a question with Would You Rather is, would you rather have no legs or would you rather have no arms? One of the questions that I find so interesting is this one. Would you rather live a lie and be happy? Or would you rather know the truth and live a life of dissonance? 85% of the time, everybody in the room will go over to the side where it identifies that you rather live a lie and be blissfully happy. So that says a lot about us and how we embrace truth. But we have to understand that healing does not happen without the exposure of the truth. And so we have to make sure that she's ready for this, because we're talking about her marriage being on the line, the marriage of her brother-in-law, her sister's marriage being on the line, the children, the innocent children that are involved in this. And so the quicker we get to the exposure of the truth, the quicker that we can get to the healing. Understanding that healing may result in separation, in divorce, in resentment, right? But it's all part of the healing process. And we have to ask ourselves, what's more important? Because let me tell you something, when you hide the truth that way, you are living life carrying this 300-pound bag of bricks on your back, and you're not sleeping well, you're carrying this weight. There's a weight I'm trying to say, the weight of a lot. Lying is heavy. Even when you think that you could just lie and keep moving because, look, I would never say that. I'm happy. He's happy. Their marriage is good. I'm good. There's a heaviness that's still there. Even though you feel like you can bear it and you're able to continue to live life and smile in people's face and serve God and do what you do, it doesn't change the fact that it's heavy. You just carry it very well. And so what happens to the heaviness that you are able to bear? What happens to it? Where does it go? Does that heaviness become sickness? Does that heaviness become a tumor? Does that heaviness become hair loss? Does that heaviness become diabetes? Where does that energy go? Guys, it just doesn't disappear. It doesn't matter if you can live a life feeling like I'm going to my grave with this. The heaviness of the lie will produce. And are you willing to do that? Because you will reap what you sow. Peace is priceless. And when you have allowed people to make informed decisions about what they're going to do with the truth, that's giving yourself peace, the ability to sleep at night, restful, in a state of self-forgiveness and a commitment to doing things differently. I think that this woman really wants freedom, and she's not a bad woman. She is a person that has made a series of decisions that don't fall in line with what she declares are her values. And we often do that. All of us have done that. And so she did not explicitly ask a question with the exception of saying, I don't know what to do. I advise that you connect with a person that you trust, someone that can provide wise counsel, because you cannot make this decision on your own. Fear of the truth, fear of loss, fear of being exposed, fear of rejection from your children, fear of all of the potential consequences may prevent you from making the right decision. So align yourself with someone that you trust that can guide you through this process. Provide support while you make these difficult decisions to do what is right and not what it is you want to do, but what is right. So the first step, get that person, pray on that person, confess, be very vulnerable about what has happened. Be very vulnerable, be very open about what has happened, and allow the healing to start with your decision to expose the truth. Guys, thank you so much for your feedback. I see that there was a lot of commentary that I will be addressing offline. I really appreciate your participation. I really appreciate your shares. I appreciate your support every Tuesday as we dive in deep for these questions. I do appreciate it. I'm truly humbled. Thank you all for joining in. Pass on the tools. Today we talked about dissonance and how we add fluff when we have inner conflict. We talked about boundaries. We talked about healing and exposure and truth and the weight of lying. We talked about consequential thinking and self-discipline and making sure that we don't judge other people, because a lot of the times the little bits and pieces that create a really big, horrible problem are things that we're guilty of doing ourselves. Until next time, thank you again for joining in. Visit me, www.askshelly.com, www.askshelly.com. I am your next keynote speaker, your workshop conference presenter, your emotional intelligence expert. I sure do hope that you enjoyed our session today. See you next week at 12 o'clock. See you, Facebook.